since expanded them to go up to 40 minutes.
Doing very well, so they use that term.
All of those things in education, of course, those things are important.
Oxygen is going to our heads and our lungs.
The affirmations in the mirror for about 2 minutes.
This is amazing.
And doing new things for our brain.
Normal, in a sense, with all of the changes.
Which parts of the brain are used?
Based on that map that we have.
See you with your smiling.
Atul, thank you very much for allowing me to join you. Namaste to you, my friends.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning into the Early Childhood Global Spotlight Show. I am your host from India. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We already have some people tuning in, I see. And if you're just new here, we do these live streams every single week on Fridays, 9 p.m. my time, which is 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, US. The point of these shows are to spotlight a specific member in the Early Childhood Global Mastermind community. So whether you are a storyteller, early years consultant, freelancer, child psychiatrist, and does something unique for early childhood community, this show is your opportunity to share your knowledge and inspire others. And I'm really excited for the guest that we have today, Clare Devlin from Ireland. Clare, welcome to the Spotlight Show.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So Clare Devlin has been working within the field of early years care and education since 1988. She began her career as a foundation state teacher, moved in 1995 to become an early years advisor with the Education and Library Board, and in 2007 took a role as director of programs with Early Years, the organization for young children. Clare has had a lead role in development of Sure Start development program for 2 and 3-year-old in North Ireland. In 2009, Clare became an independent trainer, consultant, and mentor, and has been focusing on the design and delivery of bespoke quality training programs across Ireland and the UK. Clare works with a range of schools, organizations, and providers across the statutory, voluntary, and private sector, delivering a wide range of programs that draw on lessons learned from research and local and international best practice. Clare worked as an associate assessor with the Education and Training Inspectorate in Northern Ireland. Clare is also an associate trainer with the Early Education in London. Clare's particular interest is in observation and documentation of children's thinking and learning. Wow. Welcome, Clare, to this show on our community. So tell us something about yourself and your journey, how you became an early years consultant, Clare.
Okay, so thank you, Atul, for inviting me onto the show in the first place. And just to say at the beginning, if everybody knew how poor my technology skills are, they would be laughing at what we did prior to coming on here. So no stress levels at all here.
I know. We had a pretty difficult time. That's it.
Anyway. So yes, you've kind of just introduced me and you give my sort of career history of where I've come from. So yes, I did. I started out as an early years teacher of 4, 5 and 6-year-olds in 1988. And I absolutely loved that role. I absolutely loved teaching those young children. And then I had an opportunity to work with the Education Authority, which gave me a chance to look at the bigger picture of early years education. And part of that role involved me working with people from the Department of Education and the Department of Health, because both departments come together here in Ireland and UK, where they actually look at what we talk about educare. So it's education and care come together. So that was great for me to see early years practice being delivered by people who are not necessarily teachers within the education sector, because it's a vast area and group of people who actually do that. So that was great for me to get involved in that, to see how wonderful another sector does what I had actually trained to do within education. And then in 2007, I had an opportunity to work with an early years organisation in Belfast. And during that time, they sent me to look at practice in Reggio Emilia. I also had an opportunity to visit the Boulder Journey School in Colorado, which was absolutely amazing. It gave me an opportunity to look at how Reggio practice is taken forward in an English-speaking context in another country, which was really quite enlightening for me. But it also gave me an opportunity to link in with the director of the Boulder Journey School, who was Ellen Hall, who became a great friend of mine and has sadly passed away since all of that work. But I have kept in touch with the school in Boulder because they are so inspirational in what they do. And the other great influence in my career has been a lady called Lillian Katz. Lillian Katz is based in California. She worked in the university in Illinois and was particularly passionate about what is known as the project approach in early years education. And I have to say that has inspired me greatly to move forward with the work that I'm looking at in relation to investigative play. I suppose maybe to say that in 2009, I decided to go self-employed. Freelance consultancy work, which I've absolutely loved up to this point. I am passionate about what I do and I love doing the work I do. I suppose maybe up until March 2020, whenever we went into lockdown and discovered actually for freelance people, this became very difficult. So it's trying times for us, but I still love what I do. And also just to say that my job, I'm not an academic and I'm not a practitioner now. I started out as a practitioner, but what I do right now is I actually probably translate the academic research into what is much more accessible for practitioners. So what I do is basically I synthesize the key messages from academic research and then say, what does that look like in practice? And I support the practitioners to implement that in their settings. And that's where I get the greatest buzz in my life, is actually working with the practitioners and making that happen and seeing that through with them. So that's just a bit of a kind of a snapshot of who I am and what I do.
Great. That's so exciting. And anyways, tell us about investigative play. That's a very different terminology. People have learned a lot about play, fine motor skills, gross motor skills. What is this investigative play, and what are your views? Because I think this is one of your expertise.
Okay. So investigative play really came about for me a number of years ago. Whenever I looked at just play in general, I kind of thought, how do we encourage children to become more engaged and actually engage their minds more? And this was something that that Lillian Katz brought to my attention. She really said loud and clear that we should seek as educators to engage children's minds rather than entertain children. And that had a profound effect on me. I kind of thought, are we entertaining children or are we engaging their minds at the deepest level? And whenever you think about that, it makes you assess your provision kind of much more critically. So that's what I set out to do, was to look, are we engaging their minds at a deep level? Are we promoting creative and critical thinking in our youngest children? Because that is the skill and that is what children will need as they move forward in life, is to be able to think creatively and critically. Particularly for the children who are moving to 20, 35, 20, 40 is the time whenever they'll be stepping into the workplace. The workplace will demand of them to be thinking much more creatively and much more critically. So these are really important skills that they need to carry forward. So that was one of the things I was thinking about in relation to investigative play. Also, what seems to happen quite a bit in our schools and schools right around the globe is that there's quite an emphasis placed on topics. And so we would tend to have topic driven play, which would be very often around themes. Themes which are not necessarily linked to real life experiences. So we have schools doing themes on, for example, dinosaurs. And the children love this. The children love the dinosaurs. They love actually looking at them. And what you see is lots of, the children will draw the dinosaurs, they paint the dinosaurs, they might make models of the dinosaurs, they'll compare the size of the dinosaurs, they'll count them, they'll talk about their colors, they might do some writing about them. But actually, whenever you look at that, there is no real investigation going on there. It is actually just a learning of facts.
Visual, maybe.
Very visual, yeah.
Yes.
So, and it's not harmful. This is not harmful for children. This is something which, yes, it's good. The children love it, but actually, I would like that we just dig a little bit deeper and go into much more investigative type work. And the only way that you can really get into investigative play is whenever you engage in real experiences. Real experiences where the children can actually become truly involved in the investigation. You want to be able to engage the children's minds at a much deeper level. And the way to do that is to observe the children closely and see what they are naturally interested in, what is actually inspiring them to dig deeper. And then that's where we as adults will move in to support that and help them investigate.
So how does this help children in their growth? Yes, they investigate. You are saying that, it is not just observation. We have to give them a much more deeper thing. But then when they are put in an investigative play environment, what is the what is the impact that generally children will have? Or how important is this in their growth?
So for me, it's about engaging the children. And I find that the boys in particular actually like to be involved at a much more investigative level. So by giving the boys in particular, how does this work? How does this move? The boys become very hooked in, and you can almost see how the boys physically change. They become engrossed. They become, very, very focused. They're not easily distracted. And that, their eyes are turned in, their tongues out almost, because they are so fixated on the learning in front of them and on the investigation. Whereas if we ask boys to color in a picture, they kind of just do it, but they're not actually really getting a lot from it. So we want to give them more to actually challenge them. So the investigation play is much more challenging and definitely does draw the children in at a much deeper level. And again, we have a drive on here in Ireland and the UK to promote the STEM subjects, the science, technology, engineering and maths. So we're very much focused on that. And we also want to have girls much more focused on our STEM subjects and perhaps looking at a STEM career subject, going forward to university and taking some of these STEM subjects. And I'm very much about, well, if we want our girls to do that at 17, 18, 19 years of age, they need to start now in the early years and build up those dispositions towards STEM subjects. So it's really important that we do it in the early years.
Yes. So it is directly related to STEM subjects, this investigative.
I find that our investigative play is really linked into our STEM subjects. That's where we get most of this from.
Absolutely great. So, do we show our viewers with some, examples to have the concept much more deeper, that how this, any of the investigative project that you can discuss and show? Should we put on the presentation?
Yes, we can do that. Yeah.
All right, right away.
I hope.
I'll do that. Okay. We'll have to put that on. Yes, absolutely. Good to go.
Okay, so I'm just going to share with you an example of what planning for investigative play looks like, what it actually looks like in our schools. And one of the things, just if you can see at the bottom of my presentation, at the bottom of the screen, it says believing in the power of being with children. So whenever I start to do any training or any workshops with teachers or practitioners here, I talk about the importance of being with the children. And this is about you actually being with them, listening to what they're saying, really seeing what the children are doing and tuning into their thinking, because that will actually indicate to you what it is you need to do next with the children. And it will give you an insight into their understandings and their misunderstandings around the project that they're exploring. So that gives you a real insight into where they are. So that's very important.
Yes.
So for example, one of the projects that we have been looking at under the title of investigative play is exploring movement. And this is something that children are doing all of the time. Children are fascinated by movement. They are fascinated with how things move, how things work, how water moves, how water flows. So this is something that is very, very much on their agenda. And also, this is a project that is very local. This is something that the children can easily access, whether they're in India or whether they're in Ireland. The children have access to things around them that move. So one of the first things that we do in order to introduce a project is, we talk to the children about things around us that move. So we'll talk to them about, we'll play a game, for example. Can you identify something around you that moves? But the game then becomes quite tricky and sometimes fun. It is fun for the children. They're allowed to say something that moves, but they're not allowed to say the same as somebody else. So they have to listen. They have to remember what somebody else has said. So we make it into a bit of fun, but all of a sudden you see children becoming quite competitive and trying to think, what does move around us? So you're making them observe around them. They're looking around, we're actually enhancing their observation skills. And then what we would ask the children to do is to look outside and identify something that moves. So in the first instance, they tend to look at things around them inside, and then we're asking them to think outside what moves. And obviously where you are, Atul, in India, things around you that move are going to maybe be quite different to things around us that move here in Ireland, because I'm living out in the countryside, so there's lots of tractors and farmers and farm machinery. Where you're at in Goa, you have lots of vehicles, transport, trams, possibly boats on the water and so forth. So things are, everybody has their own context, and it's really important that we work within our own context. We look at investigative play as something that our children can easily access within 10 minutes walk. You don't want to be moving away to faraway lands to look at how somebody else lives. You want to focus on how you live in your society. So that's...
I'd like to say it's a point here that, a lot of us, when we take our children out to play, we are more worried about, their hands will get dirty or they will put their legs in the puddle. And, we are more worried about that they will get dirty and they might, let's not do this, let's not do that. We want to take them to big malls to play, but we don't want to, let them do any kind of investigative play. And I believe this all can be even done if you go to a park, if you go anywhere outdoors. So I feel that's what I wanted to say. Yes, please carry on.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. So it is so important that we break down that sort of thinking about play. We really do need to.
And we typically refrain. We even stop them to touch things. Today, like I was just going out with my children, and we were just telling them not to touch this and that. Of course, it was the effect of the COVID-19. But still, we try to be more protective, and we do not allow them to explore until it's a closed environment inside the house. So generally, that's how protective parents have become now. Please carry on. Yes.
Okay, so that's what we do. We look around, we enhance children's observation skills. They're looking for things that move. They don't have to touch them actually at this stage, but what we are getting them to do is look. And then the next step is to give some of the children cameras and let them actually go and do some of the research for themselves, capture some things that move, take photographs and bring those back into the classroom or back into the environment where they work. So I'll just let you have a look. So whenever the children are back in the school, then what we invite the children to do is actually represent movement, things that move in many different forms. So this is where you can actually move to drawing things that move, painting things that move, and making things that move. And this is where this particular class of children are actually working. This is 5 and 6-year-old children. So this photograph that you're looking at is actually, it's a box of toys called Techo, and it came from the 10-year-old's classroom. So the teacher thought, I wonder what equipment we have in the school that actually the children could use to explore movement. And she remembered seeing this in one of the storerooms. So she went and borrowed it, but she didn't know exactly what the children were going to do with this. And this is really important, that we don't come at this as adults and say, you must do this. We really need to stand back and watch the children and see, what do they do with these materials? Will they do what we think, or will they come up with their own ideas? And this is really important. If we stand back and watch the children, then we will actually be able to see what children can and cannot do, what they are capable of. And our young children are so capable and should not be held back by our thinking that maybe they can only do a certain amount of things because they're 4 or 5. So this is the equipment that was brought to the children. Some of the other equipment that we use in the early years here is what we call our recycled material. This is from a warehouse. It's actually in Belfast, which is our local city. And this is just recycled material, which is it's actually free to any members. Members here, you sign up for a membership in the Play Resource Centre, and it might cost something like £70 to £100 per year for the school, for the whole school. And yeah, it's very good. And so they can go to the centre as many times in the year as they like and actually get as much material as they want.
That's really fabulous, I think.
It's
so
fabulous.
That's, you can have this kind of investigative play in all the settings in case, without spending much money. In fact, so there are a lot of people who would think that, I have to shell a lot of money out of my pocket to have these kind of activities in the school. But I think that's a brilliant idea, that you go to such a kind of place where you can identify the things that actually help children discover movement and, give them that opportunity to explore and, increase their curiosity. That I would say. So you can.
And what we do is, whenever I'm working with schools, I will say 2 things to them. You must display your recycled materials as if you are in a boutique. And the practitioners laugh whenever I say that, because I really do stress the need to present the materials beautifully, so that the children can see them easily, can access them easily, and return anything afterwards. So it's really important that this is presented beautifully. Also, I would be saying to the practitioners, only put out the materials that you think might lend themselves to the topic of movement at this stage, because you don't want to overwhelm the children by putting absolutely everything out. So the teachers and practitioners have to think very carefully which materials might lend themselves to this particular investigative project. And then once the children start to work on the project and the adults observe where the children are going, that might help them decide, well, we need some more materials. So then they in turn they go back to their stores and get more materials. And sometimes they invite the children to go with them. and the children select the materials, because children very often will see potential materials that we as adults don't see. So it's really good to bring small groups of children into the storeroom and say, what else would you need for this project? So the materials are important. Again, this is...
So I'll just take this opportunity to give a shout out to all the friends who are watching, especially Marian Herman, who is logged in, who is a moderator in the group, and she's logged in from the US. I think it's morning for her. Then I have friends Arminder Munde, then Preeti, then Sana and Siddharth, and few more who have joined in. A big hi to all of you. Thank you, folks, to have joined us. Yes, Claire, you can carry on.
Okay. So, and this is just some more of the materials. Again, you can just see the bins here that are set out. I don't know if you have IKEA in India.
Yes, we have.
IKEA, yes. So the bins are out of IKEA. So again, nothing too expensive. And the materials here are all from the Play Resource Centre. And just to note, on the wall, we put a display of the learning that takes place. It's not a display of 25 pictures, all the same, created by the children. We actually focus here on the learning that the children are experiencing through this particular piece of work.
Right.
And again, just some small parts or small loose parts. Again, if you can look closely at those, though, most of these are just recycled. So we've got bottle tops, plastic bottle tops, metal bottle tops, some little pieces of wire, foam, and this is just, if you can see the packaging, I'm sure if you get packaging from Amazon or some of the companies, then they come with packaging wrapped around it. We don't throw anything out. Everything's kept and then recycled into little boxes that the children can easily access to use in their investigative play. And you can also see where we do have some commercial blocks included also. So yes, there's a nice mix of commercial items, but we try and keep those as natural and maybe not as plentiful as in some places, but we supplement the more expensive things with these cheap or no cost items. And this is just a photograph of joining items. So it's really important that children learn how to join and connect items, particularly if they're going to be focusing on investigative play and making things. Glue and sellotape are not always the best ways to join things. So we have to teach the children how to use multiple joining agents. So we have cocktail sticks, paper fasteners, treasury tags, hole punchers and string, where children can punch holes into things and then tie knots, which in turn we have to teach the children the skill of tying the knots. Plastic rope, fishing wire, ordinary fine wires, and masking tape, and all sorts of anything at all that will join and connect we bring to the table. And we have to teach the children systematically how to use these so that then they are skilled up to be able to take forward their investigations. So this is just the children starting out, and you can see I've blocked out the children's faces just to give them a little bit of privacy, because
absolutely fine. Yes, absolutely fine.
Okay. The school is very happy for us to use the photographs, but just at this stage, because we're not sure how far this goes at this stage. But you can see this is just the materials. The children are starting out to investigate movement, and there's two children here, and their muscle development in their hands is not really strong enough at this stage to actually use the scissors the way they want to use them. So rather than the adult cutting out for the children, the adult actually stops and supports these children with their cutting skills, with their muscle development. Prior to that, the adults may have actually said, it's okay, I'll cut it for you. But we are saying, no, here's an opportunity to teach as the children need the support. And what we find is when the children need to cut and need support with cutting, they actually learn faster. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So when they need the support to do something, they actually learn much faster because they want to do it for themselves. So now you can see the children practicing cutting. This little boy was wanting to use the masking tape, and he needed to find a way to cut it and manage it by himself so that he could get on with his investigation work. So the adult showed him how to use the top of the worktop, put the masking tape on the top, and then
So,
cut
Claire,
it.
I would like to interrupt here, and I would like to ask a question which is going on. So, when these children are doing these activities, what is the role of a teacher?
So the role of the adult is very clearly about watching and listening and stepping in to support the children when it is necessary. And it is not the role of the adult to do it for the child. It is their role to really observe and listen to the children, see where the children are going, where they are having some difficulties, and then to support the learning, which is what this adult is clearly doing here. Which is empowering the children to move on and do then what they want to do themselves. And this little boy has been totally empowered and enabled by the adult. She has supported him and shown him how to manage the masking tape himself. So here he is cutting, manipulating the tape, and then I said to him, "Why did you leave the roll hanging there?" He says, "I'm just leaving it ready for the next time I need it." So he was already finding a way to be ready for the next strip. So do you remember what I said at the beginning? It's about creative and critical thinking, problem solving, managing themselves. These skills beginning to come to fruition. And these are 5-year-old children.
Okay.
So at the beginning, the children went out. Some of the children went out into the city. It's a small city here in the north of Ireland. And this group of children went out and took some photographs with iPads and cameras of things that moved. And this little boy photographed a revolving door, which you can see just on the floor beside him. And he's now using the recycled materials to investigate the moving mechanism in the revolving door. And again, as adults, would we think to do that? That may not have been our choice, but it certainly was his. This is what really inspired him. What he's trying to do right now is make the pivot in the center thicker so that it actually touches the cogs on the wheel, which when that happens, the wheel will be able to turn the pivot.
Oh, that's interesting. So this,
yeah,
and this everything is a waste material, I think.
Everything apart from this little bit which came from the 10-year-old's classroom. That was the tackle. But everything else, and there's some sticks here, are commercial items. So again, the children feel very comfortable mixing what small amount of commercial items they can with the recycled material. So everything works really well together.
That is amazing. So again, children find movement to be something very, very interesting.
Yes.
And that's what they want to observe, see, and think. That why is this happening and what is causing this to happen. So that also plays a very, very important role. Please carry on.
Children are naturally doing that, Atul. Children are naturally interested in movement, which is why it's so important that we don't dismiss that, so that we can just get on with our topics. For example, about the dinosaurs, it's so important that we really tune into the children's thinking, because they will tell us what they're interested in through this type of work. And then again, not all children have to do the same thing. So this little girl wanted to make a truck. Again, was moving outside. But again, we can see
this looks like a box. This looks like the box from Amazon, and that's some cardboard, and then she would have got some sticks, and she's trying to make a vehicle, a car by herself, and then she would have seen the movement and how it moves forward, and and if one of the tire breaks, then she would know the cause, that this is the reason why it's stopping. So That's amazing.
So, and again,
I can
yeah.
visualize. I can understand what what must be going on, and I'm very. It's so nice to see how involved she is at the moment.
Totally. And her body language, she's so comfortable with this. And again, we're already beginning to see here this change that the girls are becoming totally involved in this as well as the boys. So we're seeing this, what we want to see is more girls becoming interested in the STEM side of the work. Now, what you will see with this particular piece is that we've got the wheels stuck on, but actually there's no axle in the wheels, so the wheels won't turn. And this is something that the adults are now tuned into.
So I have Marian Herman, who is our one of our moderators in the group from the US. She says that I love this teacher as facilitator, letting child do their own planning and learning. Now she has requested, please talk about DAP, DAP, when they do what?
When they do what?
Yes, about DAP, DAP.
Sorry, say that again, Atul. Sorry.
All right, that's fine. We carry on. So
okay.
Yes, right.
Okay, so just then another child. So the children are all making something that moves because this is what they were asked to do. They weren't told to make anything specifically. They just had to make something that moved that they had photographed. So this child had photographed the clock on a building. And again, he's making the mechanism. And this is just like a lid of a biscuit tin or a sweet tin. And he's used some blue tack and some commercial K-Nex equipment to make the moving mechanism of the hands on the clock. And now
so actually Marian has just clarified that what meaning of what age, which age are we referring to here?
These are these are 5 and 6 year olds. They're mostly 5-year-olds.
Okay.
And again, you can see now the child here is checking back to see if he's put the numbers of the clock in the right place. So there's a lot going on here. It's about, he's actually checking and testing himself.
Right.
And then back to the book, back to the Techo equipment. Some of the boys went back to the box of Techo and took out the instruction manual, which is really designed for much older children. And they started to follow the pictures to make pulley systems. These are 5-year-olds.
Okay.
I'll just go through to you see. And then the accuracy that they followed the pictures, they've made the system, and they revisit the book to see what do they need to do next. So these are very capable children, being able to make something that moves. And again, without the adult saying to them, you must do this. So the children have the autonomy to do what they want to do, but they're also showing us how capable they are. And in fact, these 2 boys stayed at this experience for an entire week. They stayed here every day. Whenever they came into school, this was their first place that they went to. And we have play for these children for an hour every day.
Okay.
So just again, thinking about the role of the adult, what does the adult do? It's really important that the adult takes time to evaluate the learning that's going on, and to evaluate what the children are doing. And so what we see through this type of work is that there's a lot of time spent discussing and choosing materials. That is time children to children talking about materials, and also children speaking to adults about materials. They discuss the possibilities. The adults discuss the possibilities among themselves first, before they put the materials into the learning space. And then the children talk about the possibilities of the equipment. We see where children listen to each other and observe others, and they absorb ideas from each other. So children learn from each other. Sometimes we see a cooperation and sometimes we see lack of cooperation. And whenever that happens, we as adults have to step in and perhaps support some of that. And again, children improvising. And this is really important that children learn to do this at an early age, because we don't always have everything we need. And so children need to learn to improvise and make do with what they have. And again, we have children, we have what we call doers, children who are really quick to get in there and do the things. And then we have other children who are onlookers. And again, I would be saying to the practitioners, onlookers doesn't necessarily mean that they can't do. You need to give, some children need more time to just observe. And then after 2 or 3 days of observation, they will move in quietly and gently and do something that they have seen another child do. They just need more time. So again, it's really important that as adults, we don't rush our children through any of their learning experiences. And again, we will observe good and limited fine motor skills and dexterity. And when you see those limited skills coming through, then you need to stop and teach. And, you don't have to stop the flow of the investigative play, but if children need support with skills, you need to support those skills rather than taking over the play and taking over the making of something. It's important that you support the children to do it themselves. And again, the teachers in this particular school encourage the children to refer back to the learning intention and their success criteria. So these 5-year-old children know at this stage, we need to make sure that these machines, these things will move. This is the criteria.
That's very, very important. Yeah, that's how they will see the result of some action that they are taking, and that's what will carry on their, interest in the activity. So I believe one of the key things that I am taking away, that all these activity some action should give them some result. And movement is something, any kind of movement, maybe water movement, or maybe you showed some wheels and some other beads or anything that they push and it moves. Movement will give them that further push to carry on and to have more involvement in the activity.
So that's what the children are doing. They have to evaluate their own work, like the child with the truck. That she had the wheels stuck on, there were no axles, so we had to revisit that with all the children, because that was something that the adults observed, was there was limited understanding of how axles and pulleys work. So that then became the next piece of learning that the adults needed to attend to in order to support the children to move forward with their investigations. So that was where we went with this. We were working on axles with 5-year-olds. And again, we would invite parents or somebody who knows about axles to come in and talk to the children and give them, and also to talk to the adults, because many of the adults didn't know how axles actually worked. So the adult, a daddy or a mechanic or a joiner, somebody comes in and talks to the children and gives them that information. And so these 4 children are actually now back in the investigation area, trying to create axles so that the wheels will actually turn. So this is the same child now measuring up, and she's going to bore a hole in the box. And what she will eventually do is put a spindle right through, or an axle right through, so that the wheel will actually turn. And again, we are looking at this, and not one child saw the camera. Nobody, is distracted. They're totally engrossed in this piece of work.
Yes, they're all busy and they're not facing the camera at all. They're just busy in their own activity. That's very, very interesting to watch.
And also,
they all will be at a 5-year or 6-year age. They all would be looking to the camera, but they were they look so involved in the activity.
Totally involved. And what I also love about this is that we have 2 boys and 2 girls equally involved in this. This is total, and this is back to what Lily and Kat said about engaging children's minds at the deepest level. So I think we're really getting there with this. And again, here's another girl and a boy trying to work on creating an axle between the 2 wheels.
Wow.
So you've got this cooperative play going on where children work together, and you can see the child here, he's manipulating the tape quite comfortably himself. And in the background, we have this little poor forlorn little truck sitting with its wheels hanging off, because we've kind of moved past that. We know that that actually won't move. So that's
so Claire, what I'm thinking is that this is a perfect kind of activities that parents can do at home also.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
they can do at home
Mm-hmm.
without having to buy expensive toys, because
Absolutely.
children are at home most of the time nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get all these kind of material from home, because all will
Yeah.
have boxes. So many things are coming, and they're all look to be material which can be easily made available, and
Yeah.
let them just explore. You just have to guide them and task and be a facilitator
And
rather than
remember,
do it for them.
adults, just take your hands off, step back. Really, all you need to do is teach the children some of the skills and how to manipulate the tape, the scissors, teach them how to use the tools, but then let them do the thinking about what it is they want to do.
Right. So we have Marion, special comments from educator for you that Claire, you are so thorough and very inclusive. I love that you look at all angles. Wonderful to pull parents in also. That is something more teachers should utilize. So,
Yeah.
She has given her comments here. Thank you, Marion. Thank you so much for encouraging us.
Okay.
Yes.
And you can also see here, we would leave writing materials everywhere so that the children can actually write if they want. And what this child has written here is a hovebird, HUVBRD. Now it's upside down in the picture, but what she is saying that they are making is a hoverboard. And this is her attempt at spelling hoverboard, which I think is absolutely fabulous for a 5-year-old to have a go and write that. So it's really important that the children write for a purpose and have the writing tools close by so that they can do that when they want. And here she is now testing, does her machine move? It does move, but I don't think the axle actually moves in it. But this is the stage she's at with her investigation.
Amazing. So this is a complete, it's a project on its own. I'm not sure how many hours and how many days this they would have taken.
Yeah.
But then even if they come back to it again and again after 1 or 2 days, this not only will give them that curiosity, that thoughtful mind. I will say this gives them a lot of confidence also when they see things moving, when they see things building. There's a lot of confidence building that will happen at this stage for a child when he or she knows that I have done it. So I believe that's incredible, and that's one of the most important skills that we need to teach children at a very early age is confidence building.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have the same exploration is taking place outside. So whenever we want to explore something through an investigative play project, we look at movement inside, but we also look at movement outside on a larger scale. So these children are exploring how things move and how they move faster, how they can move slower, and so on. So the children, and you can see here again, it's just very low cost, no cost items. Buttering.
Giving amazing, brilliant, low cost ideas to everyone. Yes, everybody. You don't need to, and these are so. And I myself are thinking that we have space in our school. We must utilize doing all these activities, which are so important. And
now
no investment at all.
There are some expensive items in there. There are the community playthings blocks in there, which are called hollow blocks. Right. Those are very expensive, Atul. So if schools can't afford those, I just say to them, look, you don't need them. But if you can afford them, they are probably the best resource to buy. They are super. But really, you're looking at your local builder's yard. You're looking at guttering, downpipes, sewer pipes, and old tires and crates. Those are the staples for outdoor learning.
They're not that expensive. We generally do we end up buying expensive toys and equipments for our school every year. But then I think even these are very, very important aspects to teach children to for confidence building, and then curiosity and a lot of other things. Investigative play. Amazing. Please carry on.
He's rolling the ball down to see how fast it will travel. And then they move to how far will the ball travel. So the children are actually dictating this. They're actually then extending their own play. How far will the ball travel, and can we join the pipe so that the ball won't fall off the pipe? So these are our 5-year-olds leading on this movement. And then what they start to do is, in the right-hand side, they change the slope, they change the gradient of the slope to try and slow the movement down. But those children don't have the word gradient. They don't know about the steep and the not so steep slopes. That's where the adult then comes in and can actually eventually provide that language for the children. Also, you're changing the gradient of the slope.
Amazing.
When the children have been involved in this and totally immersed in this type of play.
Very interesting. This is very interesting, I believe.
Yeah.
And even while not only for children, I feel that must be so interesting to make this kind of gradient, the longer, there's so many videos which are going on YouTube these days when people have converted their whole houses and, they're making this kind of movement happen. But anyway, this is very, very interesting.
And so the children then continue this play. You can see they take it from guttering and pipes. They go then and they create planks and ramps, and they use different spools rather than balls. They're just fixated now on things that move, things that roll, making them roll faster, make them roll slower. They even rolled them on different types of surfaces. They rolled along the tarmac quite fast. They roll along the grass much slower. So they're looking at the different surfaces and how things will slow up or speed up and slow down. And then what we look at is our natural resource, which is water. And I kind of always stress that we should really have our water play outside so that we can make as much mess as we like, and we can actually work on a much larger scale. And these children are actually working on how water can make things move. And again, they can change the heights to make the gradient steeper or less steep. And this particular piece of work is just fascinating because this is just guttering attached to the fence at the perimeter of the school. And what the children here are doing is pouring the water down through the guttering with different containers. And it looks quite simple if you don't actually look closely. But when you really look closely and tune into what the children are doing, they are using different sizes of containers to pour the water down the guttering. And what happens is the smaller the container, then the children can run from one side of the guttering to the other and collect the water at the other side. If they use a large container and they pour the water down, the water comes very fast and they can't get to the other side before the water makes it. So what the children have been doing over the week and over a couple of weeks is trying to figure out which is the right container that they will use where they can pour the water down the tube and get to the other side to collect it before it comes out onto the ground. Do you understand?
Yes.
Fascinating how their brains are working and how they're creating their own game with this. So it's about how much water is going down and how fast it will travel before, and so they're running each time round to collect it. And again, lots of boys involved in this because it's engaging their minds at a much deeper level than just at the superficial.
Absolutely.
And again, very interested in pouring the water down through tubes. And again, these plastic tubes come out of the recycle center. And
is she trying to put the water from this side? Or and take it out? How is it?
What he does, he's put the water down this side at the top here where the crate
And
is.
she must be wondering that the water is not going out of the other side.
Absolutely.
The pipe
Because they haven't figured out that water needs to travel downwards. It will not come out through that pipe unless there's pressure. So this becomes a fascination and an investigation on its own. How, you know, the adults don't say to the children what's happening. They let the children do this for days and watch what the children do and how they figure this out. And then the children begin to figure out, well, if we keep the pipe moving downwards, then the water will travel to the end of the pipe. So that's why we've more children getting involved, because they're now starting to help each other make the water travel downwards. And this boy is waiting with such anticipation for the water to come up into the pipe, into the bottle. But what he doesn't know is that he will need an enormous amount of pressure to come to actually.
Yes.
So it's
so the teacher's role will be to make them understand and even.
Yes. But they will understand through doing this themselves and figuring this out. What they actually did at the end of this was they put the pipe onto the hose tap, onto the water tap, and actually created great pressure, and the water traveled then up into the bottle. So it was a super project, just all coming from movement. Those photographs all came from St. Clare's Abbey Primary School in Newry, County Down, which is in the north of Ireland. So I want to thank them for supplying all of the photographs and for taking part in this project. They're an absolutely amazing school with an amazing group of people and an amazing leader. So I can't thank them enough for supplying these photographs. And I've been working with them for about 3 years now. So, do you want me to end out of that? Hello?
Claire, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, I think I got bumped off. So even the internet did not.
No, I was
taking a lot of interest in our show. Anyways, you have to put on the slide, the full screen.
Okay. You want the full screen?
Yes, you put now on full screen. Now we are there.
Okay.
You come back. Yeah. Okay, so
I can go out of full screen.
You can go back to the previous, because I think we would have missed that slide. The previous one. So the last concluding slide that you were showing about the activity.
So that was just to say thanks to St. Clare's Abbey Primary School and the amazing team and amazing leader that's in the school. I've been working with them for about 3 years now, and this is the work that they have been sort of doing on an ongoing basis. And even through lockdown, or not through or restrictions with COVID, they have really endeavoured to keep this type of work going as best as they possibly can. And this
is great. I also thank the school for allowing us to give exposure to educators across the globe of the wonderful work that you have been doing. Claire, how can we reach you? So you've already put your website and your email address here. In case any of our members would like to connect with you, to know your programs, and to can you tell us a little bit about the courses and any online workshops that you do?
So will I exit out of this for now? Okay. Yeah.
You want me to remove the slide?
Oh no, it's okay. What I currently do is most of my work now has gone onto Zoom online training. Because of COVID, which at the beginning I was quite alarmed with this, because I do like to do face-to-face training with schools, and I'm very much about connecting with people. But what has happened during COVID is we can't do that, so I have to move all my training onto an online Zoom platform, which is really interesting because now I can connect with people all over the world. So people from India can come on my training, basically, at this stage. You can actually see what I'm doing on my website, which is claredevlin.org. And you go on to the workshops page, and you can see from there exactly what training is taking place. But you can also request bespoke training. People can ring me up or send me an email and say they want training on whatever it is they want. So I will actually write the training specifically for them. And we also provide a mentoring service. So people who are trying to move forward with practice but don't necessarily want training, they can actually come on board with me for an hour, and we do some Zoom mentoring sessions, 1-to-1, 1-to-2 people, and they show me what they're doing, and then I give them encouragement and ideas about how to move forward from that. So in the past 6 months, things have changed for me, but actually I'm quite enjoying it, and I'm quite enjoying the challenge of working with people from different countries at this stage. It's great. Yeah.
All right. So you are writing a book, I guess. Claire, can you tell us about the book that you're writing?
I'm writing a book called What, So What, Now What, which is really about observation and assessment and planning in the early years. So it's a practical guide for practitioners, and it's very much written in that vein. It tells the practitioners how to do observation, how to use their observations to inform assessments of children, and then how to use the assessments of the children to inform their planning for learning. So the next step for the child. It's very much a practical guide, and it's very much based on what practitioners have asked me about observation, and I've just used all of their questions and put them into a book form. So I'm hoping that book is on the shelves mid to late 2021. That's my aim.
Amazing. So Claire, it's been more than an hour that we have been talking, and you have shared. It did not look like a interview, but it looked like a workshop where I think you gave a tremendous ideas to people who will be watching, and I'm sure they will be benefiting from wonderful slides you shared with us. You've given examples, and you very clearly explained all of us. I think it's going to be beneficial for a lot of us. And we have got to know a lot about investigative play, how it can be done in the environment, I think people can directly connect with you if they want to take this further to the next level and implement this in their own settings or schools.
So Atul, I hadn't planned to do photographs. I hadn't planned to do the presentation like that. But whenever I thought, how do you explain investigative play? I thought it was going to be very boring if I just talk about it. And I thought it would be much nicer than just to use the photographs and put them in. So thank you for letting me do that.
That's brilliant. In fact, I think you must also try to get some more videos to make it much more interesting. But the photographs were self-explanatory, and we could understand the whole concept. My sincere thanks to you, Claire. It was so nice and insightful session. I thank you so much for joining and sharing all your knowledge, and I wish you all the best for all your future endeavors. I also thank all the viewers on Facebook for taking their precious time out to watch this show live. May you all have a great day and happy weekend. Stay safe until we meet again. Thank you. Next week.
Okay.
Bye-bye, Claire. See you.
Bye.